Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Johnson, and I'm reading to you from my book, I Know Where I've Been, I'm Just Not Sure Where I'm Going. I'm going to read you the foreword, which if I gave it a title, would say, I think I'll just write. We all live through passages of time, and with those passages our perspective often changes, one would hope, for the better. When I was in seminary, I thought I'd be able to carry the message of Christ and literally save the world. This same thinking caused me to carry this message into my writings, hoping to reach many through the printed word. This is not my first attempt at writing with this book. I've actually had 3 books published and written several articles for both newspapers and magazines. I don't know if other authors have felt the same way or the same burden, but the books I wrote were specifically serious and theological. My first book, told of my street ministry, was an account of how God directed me in working with and sheltering the homeless. Many things I learned from that ministry, including the great need of any city to take care of their homeless, who, even though unseen by so many of the town's inhabitants, innumerable, they are in great need. Anyone looking for a reason to serve God only need open their home or shelter to people who have no place to live. And within days, without publicity, their house will be filled and their schedules packed with ministerial responsibility. While teaching seminary, whenever I was approached by one of my potential pastors, students who were so anxious to find a professional position to serve God would complain about having no church. And I would always suggest, well, open up your house to the homeless. You'll have a ministry in no time. Interestingly enough, I never did see any one of my students take me up on my suggestion. Perhaps even more interesting, my own ministry to the homeless eventually failed. Lost in government paperwork, neighborhood church jealousy, personal inability to sometimes deal with unexpected crises, of which there are many in the ministry. That first book, entitled God's Policeman, was an exciting book for me to write, with anticipation of a sequel. But of course, that was the prime of my ministerial success. Not long after the book was written, the ministry failed, at least by corporate business standards. Only God and I know of the individual successes of ministering to people that took place, and the true success will be shown me in heaven. But by our modern standards, I was a near failure, and there was no sequel to the book. Then I decided to write a book that would answer some of the deeper theological questions about the problems of evil. I called it, Why Is This Happening to Me? After all, I have a degree in philosophy. Who would know better than myself how to share insights on dealing with the problems of life and how to get closer to God than myself? So I wrote it. Nobody read it. Now, feasibly, I'm being too hard on myself. It was read. I did receive royalties from time to time and still do. But when I took time to really look it over, about 6 months after it had been published, I realized it was a very boring and even sometimes theologically incorrect book. My views had changed. My perception of God was not the same. Worst of all, I was a very boring writer who believed I had come across all the answers. Believe me, I was definitely wrong. So finally I wrote a book, more of a pamphlet, entitled Can We Save Our Children? For a major denomination, which included a video I made to explore and expose the problems of child abuse. A project I became very excited about, but after I finished the video production, the denomination took over the entire project, and I have no idea to this day if any of my efforts were ever even utilized. I do have a copy of the video, and every 2 or 3 years I take it out and look at it again, contemplating that if I had the chance to do the same thing today, I would probably do it quite differently. Again, both my views and my perceptions have changed, and I can only hope for the better. But I've learned that life is a process we're always working towards. To write these serious books and to try to make a mark on society, or maybe even just get rich from a publication, became a burden. Probably the greatest eye-opener for me was I really didn't have anything terribly exciting or even new to say. So I stopped writing. Well, that's not true. What I mean is I stopped writing books. In my present position, I'm always writing curriculum, or developing letters, or making presentations, and those experiences keep me in the light of research and authorship. But the burden of a book and trying to instruct the world in things of God were set aside for personal development and counseling. Instead, my interest in writing and sharing the burden of the gospel with people lessened. I'd spent my life trying to lift people to the cross and understand the wonderful power of God's forgiveness, but suddenly I had been reintroduced to the golden rule, where I love my neighbor as I love myself. That was the problem. I had lost loving myself. My attention started to turn inward. My burden was no longer to save the world through Christ. My burden was to get to know Christ better for my own sake. Suddenly a peace came over me that I have known ever since, when I realized that it wasn't anything that I could do, but only God could work through me and in me, and everything that he did was simply a gift. Was it a time when I was really enjoying the peace and the lack of responsibility in regards to saving the world that I was approached to consider writing a newspaper article for the local newspaper on a regular basis. I was already writing stuff for my radio program, but the freedom was in the effort that I could write whatever I wanted. It didn't have to be religious, didn't have to be serious, just had to be real and from my heart. And the reality was the freedom to entertain with whatever came out of my mind was enjoyable to me and to other people. So when the opportunity for a newspaper column was presented to me, it came without deadlines or restrictions, and I'm still writing it after many, many years of being approached, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And here you have them. I can only hope that you enjoy these random thoughts, fantasies, jokes, and true stories as much as I've enjoyed writing them, and I've collected them in this book. I still feel the gospel of Christ is the hope of the world. There's no question in my mind about that. In fact, I don't know any other message. If you haven't come in contact with Christ, you're making a terrible mistake. You and I were made to glorify God. We were made to love him, and we were made to serve him. He has a plan for you and me. You need to make sure you find that plan. I don't know any other message. I can joke with you. I can talk to you about politics. I can talk about abuse, relationship-wise. I can talk to you about bullying, people that are mean, people that are happy, people that are nice. I can talk to you about poetry that I've written, poetry that you've read that I'd like to see, but when I get invited somewhere or have an opportunity to write a book or an opportunity to speak on YouTube, I believe that Christ is reaching out to you through me, and I'm wasting time if I don't share with you what Christ can do. Jesus loves you. He wants to take care of you. He wants to come into your heart and give you a new life. But he'll only come in if you invite him. Only if you're willing to believe that he can honestly take care of you. Now, I didn't believe that. At 15, I accepted Christ in my heart. He has never left me alone. I've never been the same since. As many as received him, to them gave he power to become the children of God. So I still feel the importance of the gospel. And every chance I get to write, it's with the hope that I can bring someone closer to God, someone into the salvation of Jesus Christ. But in this passage of time, I've come to understand that God can handle his own ministry and does things in his own time. He actually doesn't need me to develop and save the world. He needs me to love him. That's why he made me. He needs me to glorify him and to do everything I can to help him. He wants a relationship with me, not a ministry that is successful or makes me famous or rich. Instead, I celebrate life in my wonderful relationship with him. And I enjoy each day in laughter, in love, and forgiveness. That's right. Let somebody else do the ministry. Let me write. Let me share with you how I feel.